Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to Make Your Own Mandala. My name is Nova with the Plano Public Library. Before we begin, I'll go over some ground rules. Participants will be muted during the class and we will have video blocked. You will be seeing my screen. Please note that this class is being recorded and it will be posted at a later date for viewing. You'll be sent an email with a link to the recording. At the top of your screen, under View Options, you can find the option to exit full screen if you need to get to other windows on your computer. You are welcome to ask questions in the chat box. Brittany, my partner, will be moderating the chat. You'll see an icon at the bottom of your screen that says chat. Go ahead and click on that and it will open the box. Brittany will answer any questions in the chat. She might hold the question to the end of the program, or she might go ahead and ask the question at the time if it's pressing. I'll also be able to look at it as well, and I'll go ahead and answer them if I'm able to during the program. And then the chat is set to go to the panelists only, so that will only be seen by Brittany and myself. Please note that any inappropriate comments will cause your immediate removal of the class. All right, so today we will go over a brief presentation discussing what mandalas are, how they are represented across different cultures, and we'll go ahead and create our own towards the end of the program or midway through. So what is a mandala? Surprisingly, mandalas can be found all around us. You might have encountered what is considered a mandala and not even know it. A mandala is a repetitive geometric pattern which begins at the central dot and works outwards. Mandalas are symbolic in many cultures and often represent wholeness and unity. Mandalas are two-dimensional circular shapes that have a central focal point. Most have what's called radial symmetry, where from the central point, a symmetrical design radiates outwards. That means all the sections that radiate from the focal point are made up of exactly similar parts. So as you can see the image on the screen, the design is kind of segmented into equal parts from the center. And if you look at the patterns closely, you're able to see that the patterns repeat in each segment. So if you were to take it out and place it on top of another segment, you'll see that the pattern is identical. So we do see mandalas all around us. Here's some examples of how we see them in nature. Art is often a recreation and interpretation of our surroundings. So when we see radial patterns in nature, it's not surprising that we find these patterns develop independently across cultures. The origins of mandalas. The name mandala comes from the Sanskrit word for circle and refers to the sense of wholeness. Mandalas are considered spiritual symbols in Hinduism and Buddhism. It is a symbolic representation of the universe and an inner and outer world. The prototype of a mandala is usually a square with 4 gates containing a circle with a central point, shown in like the images we have on our screen. And often the mandala has an outer circle. The basic form can be found in many ancient mandalas, but there are many more variations, and we'll kind of see some of those coming up. So here are some sand paintings created by Navajo Native Americans. Something to note is that the sand paintings were not made to be an art object, but rather were made as part of an elaborate healing ritual or ceremony. Once the healing ceremony was over, the paintings were destroyed in order to destroy the illness as well. Though not all Navajo sand paintings are circular, you can see some of the similarities of spiritual wholeness as well as the aesthetic patterns, the circular radial symmetry actually, which is very interesting to see here. Beautiful motifs cover much of Middle Eastern decorative art. Motifs are repeated forms or images or symbols used to create a pattern. And as you can see with the images shown, many of the motifs follow a radial symmetric pattern as well. We also see some radial symmetry patterns in henna designs, which is very cultural throughout the Middle East and Asia. Now, going back to the spiritual and meditative aspects of mandalas, we can find them in labyrinths. A labyrinth is an ancient symbol that relates to wholeness. It combines the imagery of circle and the spiral into a meandering but purposeful path. The labyrinth represents a journey to one's own center and back out into the world. So labyrinths have long been used as meditation and prayer tools as well. And here are some images of Celtic or Celtic knots. Celtic knots are complete loops that have no start or finish and could be said to represent eternity, whether this means loyalty, faith, friendship, or love. Only one thread is used in each design, which symbolizes how life and eternity are interconnected. As you can see, there is a radial pattern that can be found, similar to mandalas as well. Now, drawing your own mandalas, which we'll be doing in a couple minutes, you can see here that there are a lot of intricate variations on how you want to draw your mandala. To the left, you'll see the image. It's more free form. You can see that it does have that radial symmetric pattern, but the lines are more curvy, more free formed. The image in the center, you can see that it's more angular and more structured. And then the image on the right, you can see it's kind of like a combination of the two. There are a lot of angles and lines, but also a lot of curves and loops and things like that. And so when you draw your own mandala, don't put too much pressure on yourself to make it look perfect and things like that. It's more of like the process and the journey that you take while you're drawing. It's kind of supposed to help you kind of meditate and things like that. And so what we'll do is we'll go ahead and get started with our actual drawing. I'm going to put a pause on the screen right now, just so I can get this, everything set up. Participants were sent an email with some supplies. I'll go over some of the variations of the supplies that you can use to create mandalas. But if you did receive that email and you have your items, go ahead and collect them and have them ready so that when I do my demonstration, you can follow along as well. In the chat box, go ahead and let me know if you guys are going to be following along. That way I'll be able to know how to kind of explain what I'm doing in the process as well. Okay, great. So I do see that there are some participants that will be following along. I do apologize, the screen might be a little bit blurry, but I'll try my best to kind of explain what I'm doing. Okay, so I'll go ahead and start off with the materials. So of course, you would need some paper. And then you can use a pencil and maybe a couple of pens that are markers. You might want to have your own separate eraser, because with drawing, you might make a little bit of a mistake, or maybe a line didn't come out the way that you wanted. So you want to go ahead and have an eraser. To make a circle, so we're going to essentially start making a template similar to this. And to make these circles and lines, you're going to want to have a compass, a drawing compass, like that, a protractor, a ruler. Okay. And if you don't have a compass or a protractor, what you can use instead to make your circular pattern template is circular objects. So some of the objects that I have are like, if you have like a roll of duct tape, and you want to have different sizes. So I have a couple of sizes for me to draw on. You want to make sure that the circle that you would draw is smaller than your drawing page. You want to make sure about that. Or like coins, or you can use like a bowl or something like that. How many of you are going to be using like a compass or versus like circular objects to draw your circles, so I know how to explain to you guys when we're doing the activity? Okay, we've got a few participants that will be following along with the compass. Okay, so with the compass, what the advantage of using a drawing compass is you'll be able to get a little bit more intricate and a little bit more detailed, and which you might not be able to do as easily with the objects, like the circular objects. It looks like we have a little bit of a mix between the two. So I'll go ahead and first show how to create a template like this with circular objects. And then once I'm done with that, I'll go ahead and show how to do the template with our compass. Okay. So you're going to first want to start with your largest circle. And the reason why is you want to try, and all of the circles that you're going to be drawing after that, you want to try and eyeball it. You might not be as precise, but you want to try and eyeball that the circles are going to be centered as they go smaller. Okay, so I'm going to just go ahead and draw the first circle using my object. Okay. And with this piece, the roll of duct tape, there is another circle inside. So I'm just going to go ahead and use that. Okay. And then probably use my little quarter here and try to eyeball it in the center. Hopefully that'll work out. And it's not perfect, and it doesn't need to be. You want to make this as pleasant of an experience as you can. Okay. Now the next step in our template is trying to create these little segments that we see here. I don't know if you can see that, but it's kind of like a pie segment that you want to create. If you have a protractor, it'll be very easy for us to create that. If you don't, there is the little workaround that can do. Is I have a little circle cut out here. What I'll try and do is create, maybe draw this out a little. And what you can do is you can cut out a circle and you can have segments that you're looking for. So I'm just going to go ahead and fold my piece of paper like this. That'll help me get half of a circle. I'm going to fold it again so that I can get the quarter pieces. It doesn't have to be super precise with this method. But these are workarounds if you don't have like a compass and protractor at home. I'm going to fold it in again so that we can get sections of 8. I'm sorry about that. It looked like the internet kind of got disconnected for me. Okay. Alrighty. Okay, sorry about that. Let's see here. I'm gonna just zoom in a little bit so you're able to see it a little bit better. Okay. So I left off with making our 1/8 segment. I'll make little lines doing that. Okay. And then you can continue to make your segments as small as you want, but you can, and that just depends on how small you want your segments to be. It makes it a little bit easier to draw repeated patterns if your segments are smaller, but it also depends on how you draw. Some people like to draw more intricate designs, whereas others are more comfortable drawing larger designs, things like that. Okay. So if you are using just the circular objects, you can continue with this method. And then I'm going to move on to showing how to create the template using a compass and protractor. All right. Start with my new sheet of paper. I'm going to readjust the screen a little bit. Okay. Now, the first thing with our compass is you're going to want to kind of open up the compass and see if the circle that you're going to draw is actually going to fit inside your paper. Okay, so if you make it too big, you can see that you might kind of go off the page. You just want to make sure that you're to get a size of the circle that's not going to go off the page. Okay, so see that looks like it's going to be nicely centered. Now, before you draw, you're going to want to draw a little center point here. It'll help you later on when we draw the segments. That center point or the focal point is where you're going to place the little pin part of your compass, and then you're going to draw your circles out. You can get precise with the circles. You measure out how big you want your circles to be and things like that. I like to be a little bit more freeform because when I draw designs, I want it to be a pleasurable experience. If it's not the same size or if it's not accurate, then I feel like it kind of takes away the fun of drawing for me. But it's up to you if you want to be precise with the sizes of your circles. I'm going to just close the compass a little bit more to make a smaller circle. And if you have trouble drawing your circle with the compass, a fun little technique that you can do is instead of moving the compass, have the compass stationary, and you can actually try and move your paper instead. You want to be very light with it, and you can kind of make your circles that way if you're struggling to create the circle with your compass. Okay. I'm going to just make smaller ones, smaller circles like that. I feel like I want to make another circle in between here. Altogether, you want to maybe have at least 3 to 4 circles so that you can build your designs off of. And when you draw, you want to try and have the pencil lines for your circle template. You don't want to draw too hard so that when you erase it, that you don't see the designs later on. But this is just to get us started off. Okay. Try and make a smaller one, see if I can get a smaller one. Okay. Now we have our circles. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to use our protractor. Okay. With our protractor, what you're going to do is you're going to place the center, the point of the protractor, where you're supposed to place the center of your circle, or where you place the corner of your angle. You're going to put that right in the center dot that we created. Okay. And then you're going to make some marks. And this is up to you where you want, how you want to segment it. In the previous template that we created with the when we just have the circular objects, we kind of folded our circle in half and then in quarters and then in eighths. With the protractor, you're actually able to be a little bit more intricate with the segments. Like if you wanted to do thirds, you can do that as well. Just to make things a little bit simple and easy, I'm going to just do the same having it in halves and then fourths and then eighths and things like that. So you're gonna make a little tick mark or line or a marker next to the 180 degrees and the 0 degrees. This will help cut our circle in half. And then you're going to want to place a little tick mark next to the 90 degree. That will cut it in fourths. And then you're going to do 45 degree. So once you have those tick marks, you can move your protractor and you can take out your ruler. And with your ruler, you're going to connect the marks that you made. So here is the 0 and 180 tick mark that we made. And then we made the 90 mark here, and you can line that up with the center dot here. Okay, it'll cut it in fourths, or break it down into fourths. And then we have another tick mark here. Our final segment here. So this right here helps us with the kind of template or the where to start off with. So I need a little kind of extra line here. I'm going to just erase that. Okay. So you can see that we have these little sections that we are able to use as a guide to create our designs. Now here, if you want to, you can go ahead and create whatever designs that you'd like. Or if you want to follow along with me, I can make a few designs to help you start off with. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of deepen or darken this inner circle here. Okay. And I'm going to just kind of eyeball a smaller one inside that. Okay. What I'll actually do is I'll transfer over to a Sharpie to try and make the lines a little bit clearer for you guys. So you can kind of see what I'm doing. Okay. Then what I'll do is I'll make little kind of petals or loops inside these sections. And I'm going to try and eyeball 3 to 4 in each section, but if it doesn't pan out that way, that's okay. So I'm just going to make little U-shaped petals between segments. of our circle. Now there's a couple ways you can do your designs. You can like draw a complete design in the ring, I guess you could call it, or you can draw your design by segment and try to repeat that. So you can kind of build your design out this way and then repeat those designs in each segment. I like to do it this way. It helps me keep each, I guess, row of designs a little bit more identical. I'm going to thicken this ring here. Then I'm just going to add little lines to kind of help with the design here. Do a little dot here. And then with my eraser, I'm just going to erase this part, this center part, so that we can kind of see what our design looks like. Okay. I do little circles here just to help build the design inside. Just going to fill in the little spaces here. And you kind of want to just kind of see what comes to you. Drawing a little shape or a design and then replicating that. You might make a mistake. I would recommend using pencil first, but for just the visual purposes of the program today, I'm using the Sharpie. But once you draw your design with pencil and you kind of are at a point where you feel comfortable or you're kind of done with the design, you do want to go back and with like a thicker, maybe pen or marker like your Sharpie. Then here, what I'll do is I'll draw another circle here to kind of enclose the little petals that we've created. Then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to, I want to create a design kind of like a triangle or more of like a pointy petal in this segment here. But what I want to do is I want to try and keep the center. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my protractor again. I'm going to make little marks for that little center point. So for Just gonna line it up a little bit better. Right about there. Okay. And then I'm going to go back with my ruler and just draw through that. It doesn't have to be exactly precise, but at least you have an idea of the midpoint and things like that between these two sections. So now I'm going to sketch out a little petal. And what I want to do is I want it to kind of have like the point be here and then stretch it out to this segment here. If that makes sense, and then kind of curve it down. So it's not actually hitting this line here, but we're curving it to create a little petal. I'm going to continue to do that for the rest of the sections. And each petal is not going to be exactly precise, but you want to try as best as you can. And then it is art, and we are drawing by hand, so not every single curve or circle is going to be exactly the same. And that's okay. If you are having some trouble drawing or anything like that, you can place your questions in the comments so that we can answer some of that for you. So I've completed my petals. I'm going to kind of just look at them to see if I want to make any adjustments or if I want to change the angle or the curve of any of the lines. I can do that. I like it so far. It's not too bad. Change this a little bit. Okay. Now what I'll do is I'll go with my Sharpie and I'll go ahead and just make these petals a little bit darker. Now that I have it sketched out. And what's nice about using different size Sharpies between like the fine tip and the extra fine tip pen is that you can make larger and smaller lines. And that helps kind of give more character, if you want to say, to your designs. Makes it more interesting. Okay, I'm actually going to darken this up here. And then next what I'm going to do is I'm going to make smaller petals for my the next part of my design. And I'm going to use our large petals as a guide. So what I'm doing is I'm just going to try and estimate the space between the lines. And just kind of like make smaller petals in between the larger ones that we just made. Continue to do that. It's okay if the space in between is a little bit larger or smaller than the next. Okay. The next what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to create a smaller design here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first create a little kind of curly Q to one side like this. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side, like that. And then in between these two curly Qs or spirals, I'm going to make a little teardrop shape, like that. Okay. I'm going to just draw over that real quick so it can so you can kind of see it a little bit better. I'll try and zoom in because that was it's a little bit intricate. Okay. So what I first did was started on one side with our little spiral. And then the next side. And then a little teardrop shape. And then I'll go ahead and just outline this here too. You can continue to do that with all of your other petals. And I don't trust my artistic skills that much, so I'm going to start with a pencil and then go over it with a Sharpie. And you don't have to do this center design. This is just something that I came up with, so you can do whatever design that you'd like. You can make another kind of a petal inside this one and maybe turn it into like a leaf pattern. So it's up to you how you want to design your pattern. But the goal is just to have the segments repeat. So you continue that radial symmetry. Okay. I'll just go back over with a Sharpie real quickly. Okay, we are at 1:53, so we have a few more minutes left to our program. But I hope this will help you kind of get your mandala design and drawing started. The main thing is to kind of create your little circular template and section out the circles so that you can create repeated patterns. Once you're done with your designs and you kind of draw over it with a marker or a black ink pen, you can color it in. That's kind of a trend that we see recently is with a lot of adult coloring. You'll see mandalas as part of that trend. And so you can use different coloring materials like color pencils or crayons or markers, whatever you have on hand to continue kind of that meditative or relaxation process that a lot of times we need. And you can color your patterns as you please. Depending on the paper that you use, you might be able to, if you use like a heavyweight paper, you might be able to use watercolors to color your designs. So when I drew the marker, I kind of wanted the little design to be more centered. So I just went ahead and did my own and didn't trace over the pencil. And that's okay. Just part of the little process that we have drawing. Okay. Now with the pencil or eraser, I'm going to go ahead and erase these little pencil marks so that I can see the design a little bit more clearly. So if I were to continue this design, what I would next do is I would probably make smaller, similar to these little petals, but not as long, just little loops. So first, actually, let me do this here. Yeah, I'll probably do that. So I'm going to just make a little kind of curve there and then repeat that. And then for this little tip here, I'm gonna make like a pointy petal instead of a curve. And I'll go ahead and make that a little bit darker so you can see. Okay. I'm going to continue that pattern. And then if I were to continue that, the next thing that I would probably do is make a little spiral here. And I may actually, so I'd probably do something like this. Spiral. And then circle around that. And play on the thickness of the markers. And do thin petals next. Yeah. And I would just continue that all along. But we are at 2 o'clock, which brings us to the end of our program. You can continue to make your designs as we have shown here. Hopefully this helps you kind of get some of the techniques that we have to create mandalas and create that circular template so that you can start creating your own designs. If you have any questions, go ahead and place them in the chat. If not, we'll go ahead and end the program. Thank you so much for joining us for our Make Your Own Mandala program. The recording will be posted. You should get an email in a couple days with the link to the recording so that you can go back and see the instructions on how to do the template. All right. And we'll go ahead and go back here. Please join us on our website for more information. You can always go to our Plano Library Learns blog, where we have a lot of information about our programs there. And we would love to hear from you and continue to provide great programs and services for our community. Thank you so much.